Alright, what to do out the bench, family? Welcome back to another episode of Out the Bench podcast. Today was game 2 of the Western Conference first round series versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, Los Angeles Lakers, which they end up pulling a W off, with a 94-85 win. End up tying the series 1-1, hit with the series heading back to Minnesota. Now, before I get into my thoughts and, my opinions on how this game went and what I feel about this game and things like that, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and comment section down below how y'all feel about the takes and things I'm finna dispute in this video. But me, I feel like my initial reaction is just that, okay, the Lakers, they won tonight. I don't want to take nothing away from the Lakers. I don't want to discredit the Lakers and they win today, which they played, a hell of a game. They won today. They protect their home court, and definitely was a much needed win. Because if you go down 0-2, you lose both of your games on your home floor. Going on the road in a hostile environment in Minnesota, that's gonna be a tall task. But they end up, pulling off the win, and end up tying the series and making this series an actual series. Now, how I feel about everything and how it went down, Luka did what Luka was gonna do. I expect nothing short of elite level ball play from Luka Doncic. But the difference between game 1 and game 2 is that Luka, instead of having one assist, he ended up having 7-8 assists, and that was the difference. Like I said in last video, y'all can go back and watch that. The same thing how I was saying with Anthony Edwards, the same thing I'm saying with Luka Doncic. Like, obviously you're gonna get your points. You're gonna, especially Luka, with him being so gifted, offensively, and being probably a top 2 scorer in the NBA. I don't care. You can argue with yourself, but Luka's probably, if he ain't the best, he's second. And when it comes to putting the ball in the hoop, probably the second best scorer in the NBA. But so he gonna get his 30. But the thing is, what set Luka apart is this playmaking, and that's what's gonna make this Laker team, what's gonna make them go and make them be full and play at a complete level. Because especially when you got a guy like LeBron James playing on side along to you, who who's not used to playing, off the ball as much. He used to, being in that Luka role, controlling the tempo. He making the reads for everybody else. He doing the playmaking. He doing the scoring. Then, he's able to pick and choose his spots and be aggressive and win, not to be aggressive and things like that. But Luka, you have to be able to get your teammates involved, where obviously you're gonna get yours. But now you allowing, your teammates like Dorian Finney-Smith, the Austin Reeves, and, Rui Hachimura, and, Jared Vanderbilt. You letting these guys to be able to, like, where you can just stay at home and just let them, get out of rhythm, get out of sync. Today was a little bit different. The ball was moving. Everybody getting involved. Everybody was in rhythm. And that reflecting into the game today. You get Austin Reeves. You get Austin Reeves with 16. LeBron gonna get his 21. Rui had 11. Dorian Finney-Smith off the bench, he had 7 points. But, it was just enough to get the job done. In which, that's why I say I don't want to take nothing away from the Los Angeles Lakers. They came out and did what they supposed to do. They won on their home floor. Like I said, they didn't want to go down 0-2. But that's enough for the Lakers. I just feel like this game right here was more so about one team act like they didn't want to win, and another team act like what's the saying? I say it all the time. One team was playing like they one team didn't want to win, and one team wasn't trying to win. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Cause the game was right there for the taking, but it just seemed like every time Minnesota was got right there into striking distance, where it looked like they can get the game down to 6, they can get the game down to 5, they can get the game down to 3 points. They do a bonehead turnover or a bonehead mixed shot. Now, I don't want y'all to seem like I'm just one-sided, like I'm just going for Minnesota or I'm going for the Lakers. I'm just speaking the truth from what I see. And what I seen today in this game is just, the Lakers ain't just showed me enough to where they were just... Now, obviously, they was up by 20 points majority of this game, but coming down the stretch where it really mattered, the fourth quarter, because as we know, in the playoffs, you don't win a game. You win a playoff game playing the full 4 quarters. You don't win it. And the who contested this is the Detroit Pistons. They learned that the hard way. Which when they, in game 1, when they end up, losing the game, they was up the whole game by double digits. End up losing game 1 to the New York Knicks. When it comes playoff time, you don't win a playoff game in the third quarter. You don't win a NBA game in the first quarter. You don't win an NBA game, an NBA playoff game in the first half. You have to play the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter until the game is completely over, until you solidified and you can just be satisfied with your level of play. And to me, I just feel like the Lakers, outside of the first 3 quarters, they played beautiful basketball. Now, if they would have played if they would have played all 4 quarters like they did the first 3 quarters, I'll be talking a different tone, having a different pitch in my voice, or having a different opinion. But in my state of mind right now, just watching this game right here, if I'm the Lakers, I take the win, because we needed this win. But going on the road, moving forward, I'm concerned about LeBron. LeBron, the first 2 games he haven't played up to LeBron standards and what we know him and what we know him to be in the previous years. And I think a lot of that got to do with Luka. I think a lot of that got to do with how Minnesota they play style. LeBron is 40 and he running up with a bunch of 22, 23-year-olds. They're gonna take a toll on your legs, especially in the playoffs. His legs getting heavy. You can't just play. You can't expect him to go out there and be one of the main defenders and go out there and give you 30 and play make and be on the ball and be off the ball and slashing and shooting and whipping and running and what I'm saying, he got too much miles under his belt for him to be doing all that. Not saying that he can do it in spurts, but as you see in this series, these first 2 games, he has struggled. He struggled to shoot the ball from the field. He struggled to shoot the ball from the 3-point line. And a lot of that got to do with like the Minnesota Timberwolves taking the legs up under LeBron. He just don't look the same. But back to my original point, what I was saying, Minnesota, they had plenty of opportunities to win this game, in my opinion. Even though the Lakers kept them at bay, kept them at arm's reach, kept it at 9, kept it at 8, kept it at 7, kept it at 6, kept it at 10. But I just feel like every time they got right there, Minnesota got right there, a turnover, Anthony Edwards turnover, or they'll go down. And I'm thinking to my head, I'm like, okay, they got it, they down 6 right here. They'll get a defensive rebound, pushing in transition. In my head, I'm saying this in my head. Literally, I'm saying this in my head. I'm saying, okay, they need to score right here to really, really do something. As soon as I say that, they'll come down and jack a 3. No, bro. That's why I say Minnesota act like they didn't want to win. And then we had the Lakers. The Minnesota act like they weren't trying to win. Then we had the Los Angeles Lakers who act like they didn't want to win. Then we had a team who didn't want to win, and we had another team that wasn't trying to win. And that's what we got today. I'm not trying to say that this game was boring, but it wasn't exciting either. So it was just in the middle. But at the end of the day, the Minnesota Timberwolves, obviously, you did your job. The mission was complete. After game 1, the mission was complete. Now you tried to be greedy and try to steal 2 games, on the Lakers on the home floor, and try to take this series, going back home 2-0. Unfortunately, you didn't get you didn't get it done. But still, you gotta go back home with your head held high. Cause like you said, you stole game 1, you beat them by 22 points. You lost this game by 9 points, and you had opportunities to where you can feel like you can close it out and where y'all can feel able to win this game. So that's something you can take it to next game. But what I think the difference between Minnesota was Anthony Edwards. Like I said last game, Anthony Edwards, what's going to set him apart is his playmaking this series. He had 25.6 assists, but he had 25.6 rebounds, but he had no assists. And what's going to set this Minnesota Timberwolves apart is Anthony Edwards' playmaking. I told y'all, just like in game 1, if Anthony Edwards can be able to get around 6, 7, 8 assists a game in this series, Timberwolves gonna be hard to beat, because the thing is, now you gotta worry about the McDaniels. Now you gotta worry about the Nas Reeds. Now it make the defense stretch out a little bit more. It make them spread out a little bit more. Driving lanes come a bit, more at a premium than before. Obviously we know you're gonna be able to get your points, but the thing is your playmaking. Like I said, that's the growth. Everything is not about scoring. Playmaking can be just as deadly. Playmaking can be just as deadly as you scoring. Cause those 6 assists can account for almost 30 points if you look at it. So that was the difference. You had Luka first in game 1. Luka had 1 assist. They ended up losing by 22. Game 2, Anthony Edwards had 0 assists. They ended up losing by 9. And that's why I said both teams, both players. It's not just about scoring. Can't just jack up shots. Can't just play one-on-one basketball, because now you're taking away shots from your teammates and not getting them in rhythm. Which we know you the star player. Obviously, you ahead of the snake. You gonna get yours. You gonna find one way or another. We know you gonna end up coming out with 25 to 30 points. We know that's a given. But what about everybody else? Everybody else got to eat, and that was the name of this game. And that's just how I felt, and that's my opinion. Anthony Edwards, he didn't get his teammates going, which led to the poor shooting. You get 8 points from nobody outside of Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards scored in double digits. Hey, there you go. That's the story of the ball game right there. Nobody scored double digits outside of your 2 best players. You get no assists from Anthony Edwards, who I said who need to come into this series trying to look like a different Anthony Edwards. Not just out here that's trying to gunning for his shot, gunning for his own, but looking for teammates as well. That was the difference in this game. Now, like I said, this game was, I'm not going to say it was just boring, but I don't know. It didn't have that feel in this game. Neither did game 1. Hopefully when we go back to Minnesota. But I just told y'all, playoff games, it's not just about, scoring, going back and forth. It's the crowd intensity, the crowd engagement. Like when you watch that Denver Clippers series, the engagement in the fans, like out after a made basket, you feel the intensity, you feel the energy in the gym watching that ball game. You feel the pressure, you feel everything that's going on in that ball game. When you watch these other games, these other series, I don't get that same feeling. Don't get me wrong. That the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks, cause the Madison Square Garden, they gonna get loud. They crazy. So whenever they team doing anything productive or they winning anything, we know how the Madison Square Garden. But outside of them 2 series, the Denver Nuggets and Clippers and Pistons and the Knicks, all these other series, they kind of been like, I'm not gonna say, I'm gonna just say it, they've been a snooze fest. You got you got Memphis Grizzlies, you got OKC, both of those games blowouts. You get the Celtics, they blew out the Magic in game 1. Cavaliers blowout. You get who else? Don't get me wrong, the Houston Rockets in that Warriors game had some intensity into it. I ain't gonna lie. That's a good series as well too. The Bucks, Indiana Pacers, they've been giving them belt, which I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit in a moment. But yeah, that's just how I felt about I know I'm rambling a little bit, but that's how I felt about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lakers game today. One team ain't want to win, one team wasn't trying to win. And end up, you gotta have one winner, you gotta have one loser, and Lakers, they end up winning this game because they did enough in the first 3 quarters, and Timberwolves couldn't do enough in the 4th quarter to be able to pull it off, and they didn't make enough plays down the stretch. Anthony Edwards didn't get his teammates going, and he couldn't make enough shots, make enough baskets, and that was the results of this game. To sum it up, that was really it. To sum it up. Because you look at it, the Lakers, Luka had 31, 12, and 9. Austin Reeves had 16. LeBron had 21. Rui Hachimura had 11, and nobody else scored in double figures. So, you know, outside like your top 3 options, like I said, you get Austin Reeves, you get LeBron. You know what you getting from those 3. Everybody else from Minnesota, I'm living with it. Now to combat that on the other end, Anthony Edwards ain't getting nobody involved, which I said that needs to be his main focus, being out there, being a facilitator, being a playmaker. He didn't do that. He got 0 assists. Team ended up losing by 9. Nobody outside him and Julius Randle who can be able to, you know, consistently put the ball on the floor and get their own shot and play at a high level like that and got in double digits. That sums it up right there. It ain't got nothing to do with turnovers. It ain't got nothing to do with 3-point shooting. It ain't nothing to do with field goals. None of that. Because both teams shot terribly from the field. Shot terribly from the free throw line. I mean, from the 3-point line. Let's see. Lakers had 41 rebounds. Timberwolves had 34 rebounds. The Lakers was 20 up. The Timberwolves were 20 of 25 from the free throw line. Well, I can also say that got something to do with, like I told y'all, rebounds, turnovers, free throws. Lakers, they was perfect from the free throw line, out-rebounded them. Lakers had 12 turnovers. Timberwolves had 11. So they won 2 of the 3 battles, and more than likely, you do those in the playoffs, you're gonna win it. You gonna find yourself winning. It's rare that you out rebound the team, you make more free throws, or you know what I'm saying, you don't turn the ball over as much as the other team that you lose that game. It's very rare. That means you have to shoot poor from the 3-point line. The other team had to shoot damn near 60% from the free throw line for you to lose that game. But that's how I feel about this game. You know, y'all let me know who y'all got in game 3. I feel like Minnesota, they should definitely still feel very good, especially going back home. As this series wear down, we already looking at, like I said, LeBron in these first 2 games, how it's taking a toll on his legs. But as this series continue, you know, you're relying on Luka to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting when he already a defensive liability. LeBron with his age, you steady putting more mileage on his legs. You steady putting pressure on his legs, and you steady relying on, the Gabe Vincents, the Jared Vanderbilts, the Ruiz to consistently show up. So you should feel good. So I got in game 3, I got the Timberwolves winning by double digits. I'm not gonna say they winning by 20, but I think they can win from either where to 8 to 12 points in this game. Anthony Edwards, he gonna have a bounce back. He gonna look at film. He gonna know that he gotta be able to. He gonna see the difference between game 1 and game 2. That he wasn't facilitating the ball, getting his guys open looks. Everything was contested, and I think they gonna make the proper adjustments. And I'm gonna see y'all in game 3.